Hello, I hope you're well. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video, which is my 5-star predictions video. So I did one way at the beginning of 2021, which I will give you kind of an update on, and then I will pick another few books for my 5-star predictions for 2022. So why don't we dive right in? So basically, when I filmed my original 5-star predictions video, I picked 10 books total, and I did pretty good at getting through all of them, but not quite, which is why I'm going to start by selecting only 5 books, because who doesn't like a cutesy number like 5-star predictions, which I'll talk about in a second. But as I said, I did do pretty well, although not great. I read 7 of the books that I had predicted were 5-star predictions. How many times can I say predictions in this video? In any case, the 3 that I didn't read were Cold Warriors, Romantic Outlaws, and Black Tudors. Now, when it comes to Romantic Outlaws and Cold Warriors, those are still 2 books that I think are 5-star predictions to me. I just haven't had a chance to get to them because both of them are tomes, and my tomes kind of got hijacked by Outlander and those books that I was trying to read for the majority of 2021. However, I am trying to read Romantic Outlaws in the next couple of months, so hopefully we will see my thoughts on that soon. But when it comes to Black Tudors, I actually ended up unhauling that book, which I know is kind of like, Brittany, it was a 5-star prediction, why didn't you read it? But here's what happened. What happened was, I was very excited about this book, Black Tudors, which was supposed to kind of help debunk the myth that Black people did not live in Tudor England. But then I know a few people who read it and they were kind of lukewarm about it or didn't enjoy it at all. And that sort of made me keep delaying reading that book. And by the time I unhauled it, I really did not feel drawn to the book at all. So I ended up unhauling that one, I think at some point during the summer. However, when it comes to the other books, I want to say I did pretty well. 1, 2, 3, 4. So more than half of those books were 4 stars or higher, but only one of the books made it to a 5-star. So No Man's Land was 4.5 stars. Catherine the Great was my one 5-star prediction that was actually a 5-star prediction. I've spoken about that book so many times on this channel. It is a biography of Catherine the Great. Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters, which was a sapphic romance set in Victorian England, very dark, very atmospheric. That ended up being 4 stars for me. The End of the Affair by Graham Greene was 3.5 stars. I didn't love it as much as I had hoped. That was one of those rare instances where I think I actually enjoyed the movie adaptations that I've seen of it a little bit more than the actual book itself. The Luminaries by Eleanor Caton was really the only dud on this list. I think I originally gave it 3 stars, and then the more that I talked about it, the more that I realized how satisfying it would have been to drop kick that book across a field. I decided to lower that star rating, so that ended up being 2.75 stars on the story graph. And then lastly, one of the more recent books that I read, you will see or maybe have seen in my December wrap-up, was Catherine by Anya Seton. That wasn't quite a 5-star read for me, but it was a very, very solid 4-star. So as I said, I didn't do terribly. More than half the books I read were 4 stars or higher. We did have a couple of duds, but you win some, you lose some. So now is the point where I actually pick 5 new 5-star predictions for 2022. My plan is to basically get through these and then film another one, whether it's the beginning of 2022 or some point in the year. Hopefully it does not take me a full 12 months to read all of these books, but we will see. So let's talk about these books, shall we? Ooh, and I am so going to knock over my apple cider. The first book that I want to talk about is The Bonfire by Gregory Dragamon, and this was definitely a cover buy originally. I was at the Strand downtown in New York City, and I saw this on a table, and I did one of those like slow turns, made eye contact with the book, and it was kind of love at first sight, and I didn't even know what the book was about at the time. It just looked stunning. Like this is a stunning cover in my mind. And it's also translated fiction, which I am always here for. And I think the words that inevitably got me were the description of this book as political Gothic. I love Gothic literature, whether it's classic Gothic literature or more contemporary and modern Gothic literature, but everything about this book just checked a bunch of boxes for me. I think the main character is a teenager, which is not usually what I go for, but she's living in Eastern Europe during like a like authoritarian regime. She is kind of from this family of witches. Like, I don't know if they have actual magical powers or they are just practicing witchcraft at this point. But it's a story of her kind of dealing with this dictatorship, the politics of it, and also learning more about her family at the same time. And there was nothing about that description that did not make me happy. So this is a book that I really, really want to get to very soon. I maybe try to get Annie and also Noelle to read this for one of the Found in Translation book club books this year. I'll at least throw it out there to them and see their thoughts. But regardless of whether we read it for the Found in Translation book club or not, I can't wait to get my hands on this one. So, there you go. The next book is a modern classic, and I have never heard... Let's put it this way. I had never heard of this author. I happened to be cruising the book websites and saw it and was just like, into my cart you go. So, Barbara Pym, Excellent Women. I feel like someone else I follow has talked about this book and has enjoyed it, but it's supposed to be this comedy. It's about this sort of clergyman's daughter. I think she's a spinster living in 1950s England, and it's really about like this vanishing age of manners and repressed desires, and it's her coming into contact with her neighbors and their lives. And I just think this is going to be really smart and witty and just really entertaining, and I think it's going to have some really interesting commentary on 1950s England, and I just don't see how this could go wrong. It could go pear-shaped, let's be real, but I do think that this is going to be one of those books that, as far as a modern classic goes, I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it, so that's why it's on this list. But as I said, it was another book that the moment I saw it, it kind of was love at first sight. Now let's see if the love endures. That's the real question here. But I am very excited for a book that is described as being humorous, because as I said, I do feel like it's going to be quite clever. So that's that one. The next book is probably the one on this list that I have the highest expectations of, which might be aligning myself with failure, but it's partly because of the subject matter. It's also partly because one of my subscribers has repeatedly recommended this to me. Was it you, Prairie Rose? I can't recall. If it is you, let me know in the comment section. But the book is The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simon, and this is a book set in Russia. It is set during World War II, I believe around the time of the siege of Leningrad, where Hitler's troops were trying to invade Russia, and it's a story in part, I think, about these two sisters, but also is this epic love story. In fact, I think this is the first book in a trilogy. perhaps, but the like subtitle is a love story. So I do think it is one of these like really epic romances, which I am here for in many forms. But this is a book that just speaks to me on a lot of levels because of the setting, the time period, the romance that it's compared to. Dr. Zhivago is what I've heard it compared to more often than not. It is a book that I have not read, but I have seen the movie, so I do know what's going on a little bit there. But I do feel like this is just going to be one of these books that has love and tragedy and just like hardship and overcoming that hardship, and I just think it's going to be fabulous. I am so looking forward to this. Hopefully I get along with it as well as I think as I might. Does that make sense? Rewind. Hopefully I get along with it as much as I think I will, because if I do, I will most certainly be buying the other books in the series. So yes, thank you to whichever subscriber recommended this one to me. I am hyped. The next book is the only nonfiction on this list this time around. You Don't Belong Here by Elizabeth Becker. And this is a book that I feel like is right up my alley because it's about women in history, but it's about a time period that I haven't read a ton about. It's set during the Vietnam War, and these three women, who are they? Kate Webb, Catherine Leroy, and Frances Fitzgerald, are all reporters during a time when it's not considered appropriate for women to be foreign correspondents during a war, and they kind of change the art of war reportage while also facing like all this misogyny and the like backlash of men against them because of their gender. And it just sounds like it's going to be so interesting. It also sounds like these women could potentially be girl crushes for me, historical girl crushes for me in the future. Really, the only like reporter that I could think of similar to them is Gellhorn, Martha Gellhorn, Ernest Hemingway's wife or one of his wives. So I'm very interested to see these other women on this like more contemporary stage with Vietnam, because honestly, the only book on Vietnam that I can think of that I read was The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, which I remember reading in high school, and that is still a book that I recommend to people. I've been trying to get my father to read it forever. But yeah, this just seems like it's going to be up my alley because of this focus on women during this particular time period, and it reminds me of books like No Man's Land, which focused on women during World War I, who were kind of breaking the boundaries and being these pioneers for women during that time period. So I'm very excited about this one. The last book is honestly one that I have owned for far too long without reading it, especially because I think that I am absolutely going to love it. The book is I, Elizabeth by Rosalind Miles, and this is a novel all about Elizabeth I, and she is another one of my historical girl crushes. I have watched basically everything on her. I own quite a few books on her that I also need to read, but I picked this up years and years ago. I don't even know if this book is still in print. I should probably check that. But I basically bought this right after I read Rosalind Miles' trilogy on Guinevere, an Arthurian legend, because I loved it so much. That's actually a series that I only just unhauled, and it's probably been 15, maybe even 20 years since I read it. So I picked it up because I trusted Rosalind Miles, and I really, really want to get to it. It is a pretty chunky little book, and I think that it covers Elizabeth over the course of maybe her entire life, from her birth to her like final days. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I think that's the case. And honestly, I just want to see if anyone can do Elizabeth I justice, because I did read Young Elizabeth, is that the one, by Alison Weir in 2021, and it was kind of meh and kind of forgettable, as you can tell, because I can't even remember the title of the book. So hopefully this one does everything I want it to do for Elizabeth I, because that would be great. And as I said, Elizabeth I is a historical girl crush of mine, and I really can't wait to finally get my hands on this and read the 600 odd pages there. But Rosalind Miles is definitely an author I trust. I own several of her other books, including one of her most recent books, which is nonfiction, that I want to read soon. But I trust her as a writer, so we'll see how she does with this subject. So yeah, those are my 5-star predictions for 2022. We'll see how long it actually takes me to get to them, and I will report back. You will, of course, see these books as I talk about them in wrap-ups and the like, but I do hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe, because it would mean the world to me, and it makes this little channel grow. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!